Welcome everyone to another episode of Heal the Healer, Mami Goddaughter Conversations. Lafia, welcome in. Welcome to another beautiful Heal the Healer, Mami Goddaughter edition, where we have some really great, impactful conversations. We always begin with giving our respect and gratitude for those who come before us and those who give us the authority to be in this space. And so I want to give great honor and respect to our home temples in Benin, and all of the temple keepers throughout the ages who have protected and stewarded and passed on this divine ancestral wisdom and knowledge. I want to give great honor and respect to our great matriarch, Queen Mother Manonae Bujitalo Nimaso II. I want to give great honor and respect to our home temple here in Benin and all the temple keepers. Our home temple here in the States, Nazia Fall Spiritual Institute of North America, and our founder and leader and my spiritual mother, Miyanu Ananasi. And I want to greet you and your ancestors and all the energies that are walking with you and helping to protect and guide you in this life. And I want to give acknowledgement to my own ancestors and the energies that are with me. My name is Mama Zahran, and it is a pleasure to be here with you all. The last week, the last Sunday, last class of 2025. This has simultaneously been the fastest and longest year. I feel like so much has happened, but it's also kind of crazy that we're at the end of the year. But I am excited for all that is to come. We are going to start with listening to some of the podcasts from the gender series. Lassie, do you have it all queued up? Okay. All right. I'm excited to see where this conversation goes. Welcome to the Divine Feminine Podcast, where I am your host, Priestess Haneera Abounu. Here I support women in learning and applying the Divine Feminine principles into their lives. We talk about lifestyle, family, culture, and spirituality, all from a traditional African perspective. Welcome to the safe space. Welcome, Divine Feminine family, to another episode of our podcast. We've been building and building together for the last 4 months, and it's been a wonderful experience. Last week, we kind of segued out of our sisterhood series, or we kind of wrapped up our sisterhood series, and I just kind of spent time talking with you guys about what's going on in life. I do that from time to time, just, letting you guys know what's going on. We're preparing for the trip to Africa, for the move to Africa. And, that's important for a lot of people, because there's a lot of people that are like, Priestess, oh my gosh, I wish I could do what you're doing. Because of my entanglements. Welcome to the Divine Feminine Podcast, where I am your host, Priestess Haneera Abounu. Here, because of my situation, no pun intended, or pun intended, to Will and Jada. I talked about them last week too, but we're not gonna go there again this week. But people are just wanting to know how things are going with that. Am I receiving opposition? What does that look like?
And I've been having a lot of conversations with Africans all over the diaspora here in the States that are rooting for us, those of us who are going, that are welcoming us. I have to post a video because I was in New York and I was trying to open up an account and, you know, get things ready for when I get over there, and a little bit of challenges. But in the midst of the challenges, I met two amazing people, both from Nigeria, and I'm looking forward to building with them as I make my transition over the Atlantic. So, I mean, it's all good. They're welcoming us there. And, you know, I would just much rather do that. You know, I had a conversation with a young lady today, and we're going to get into today's podcast, but I just want to start with this. I had a conversation with a young lady today, and she was saying, you know, you loved Ghana that much where you would want to move there, you know? And I was just like, yeah, sis, you know, what do you mean? And, you know, she went on I don't want to say a rampage, but she went on to warn me, you know, of things I should look for when I go there, you know, so that I'm not taken advantage of, so that I'm not, you know, robbed, or so that no harm comes to me and all of these things. And, you know, I had to let her know, like, the honeymoon with me and the motherland is over. You know, I am well aware of the turbulence and the highs and lows that comes with trying to emerge into a new culture. Even though it's our culture, we weren't raised in it, so we're kind of adapting back into our culture, and that doesn't come with out some opposition and some obstacles. But here's what I told her, and I'm gonna tell you guys the same thing because it's truly what I mean and what I feel in my heart and my spirit, and it's what leads me. I would rather struggle, and I would rather be hurt and heal with my African brothers and sisters on the continent and try to figure this thing out. Them try to figure me out. Me try to figure them out. Me adapt into the culture. Me go through the struggles of realizing that the way I think is wrong because my thought process was given to me by the colonizer. That's not right. I would rather go through all of that. Deal with, you know, them being, trying to hustle me or getting the tax. You know, certain places calls it different things, but there's a certain tax that you give foreigners, being looked at as a foreigner, and being excluded in a certain way. I would rather go through all of that than to sit here in this country and deal with another reincarnation full of lies, deception, and not pleasing my ancestors. That's just the way it is. That's just, you know, this country, this political system is killing the human being. We're killing the planet. This society is killing Mother Earth, and we can't do it any longer. We have to align with nature. I'm not going to get that here in the States. I would rather go back home and prove myself worthy to my people, and fight and go through whatever that looks like, right? Having to figure that out and find my support group and find my circle of people, find my sisterhood. I would rather suffer and do that than stay here and go through the hell that is about to ensue in this country. I just would rather do it. You know, so, and that's what I shared with the young lady earlier today, and that's just what I'm being led to. I said it months ago, you know, that the school system wasn't going to reopen, that we were going to have to take tests and vaccinations, and they were going to be mandatory, and all of these things were going to be required in order to get back to some type of normalcy. And what it is just how far are we willing to submit to the system. And I am all for Mother Nature. I am not trying to go further into the system. I'm all for my ancestral indigenous ways. And so for me, I just don't want to play the game anymore. And if there's a game to be played, I will do it on the continent of Africa and take my resources and my lineage and try to rebuild some honor and some dignity to my bloodline for future generations. I'm not going to Indonesia. I'm not going to the Philippines. I'm not going to anywhere else than where my blood is from. That's it. So yeah, we talked about the trip to Africa and just everything last episode, and then we recapped about sisterhood, and then at the end I was telling you guys what to expect in episode 17, and we were going to start our series on sex. And I said sex, but I really don't think that the episode series is going to be called sex. I might have said that as a tag word to get you guys to perk up in the in the episode, but come on, you guys know that's not me. I live a very subdued, a very reserved life where I don't even believe that hype, so I wouldn't try to sell you guys on that type of thing. I think the reality of what this series is going to talk about and bring to light is our roles and responsibilities as designed by nature, so that we can realign ourselves correctly. And the reason we want to realign ourselves is because everything is about harmony and balance. How can we be in harmony with nature and in balance within existence? That's what it's about. And so a lot of times you hear people say that, but what does that really mean? You know, and depending on who says it and their level of teaching and where they've been taught, you know, it has a different definition, but we all kind of say the same thing. And so I will tell you in this series and in this episode and in future episodes to come, you know, what that means. And so that is what the series is going to start with. And the reason I thought it was most applicable, or most appropriate, I should say, not applicable, but most appropriate to segue into this type of series explaining the sexes and explaining gender and introducing, more importantly, the masculine component is because we've been spending so much time on the divine feminine. We've been spending so much time on being women and the sisterhood, which is important, which is what this podcast is about. However, we have to have a realistic and a total view, and I have to give you guys perspective. And in order for you to truly appreciate the divine feminine, in order for you to truly appreciate your gender and your responsibility and your place in life, you have to understand where that comes from and where that derives from, and that it's not just something that Priestess has come up with. This is ancient teachings. This is universal principles based on existence. And so that is the knowledge that I'm going to be bringing to you in this particular series. And it helps put everything else into alignment, things that we've talked about in the past, in addition to setting the foundation for future podcasts. And so that's why I wanted to do that. I wanted to have this series, right? We've been talking about communal living, and we've been talking about sisterhood. And so if you were to apply the last 5, to 8 episodes into your life, like really enact them or put them into play, then you would have a lot of feminine energy around you, right? You would have a lot of women working together. You would have a strong sisterhood, and everything would be working, hopefully working smoothly, and when that happens, we can't ignore our human tendencies for intimacy. We can't ignore that craving inside of us that wants to be touched and appreciated and loved. We can't ignore that drive and call that happens, between our legs, and I hate to be like that, but hopefully there's no children listening, and it's just us grown folks, and you guys understand what I'm saying. And when you get women to working together for a long period of time, and we find a way to work together, we find what beautiful characteristics our sister has, and we exemplify them, we magnify them, and she does the same with us. It can become, if not put in the proper context, it can turn into an awkward situation, or it can be extremely frustrating, because it will cause you to miss the male energy, or it will drive you into a possible lesbian situation. And so I want to introduce the masculine into this conversation to offer balance and to offer the traditional perspective, because I don't want you guys to think that I'm pushing one narrative or one side, and that's not the case. That's not the case. So, with that, you have your sisterhood, right? And like I said, you have those natural cravings for attention, for sexual satisfaction. You have those moments where you need to be touched and you need to be held. And honestly, traditionally, in the village, in indigenous times, women console other women. And I'm not saying that we go as far as America would like us to go in this oversexed society. But what I'm saying is we console each other. We are who we have most of the times, especially in times of war. It is the women who keep the home, keep the culture, keep the village or society running. And we have to work together and complement each other. And we have to heal each other. And we have to have compassion for one another. And where this society messes up is that this society will skew that and turn that into a unnatural attraction. They will turn that into lesbianism, and that is not what our culture is about. Indigenous culture, for the most part, is about sisterhood, the women working together. But when it comes to that particular component of sex, that is something between a man and a woman, and it's necessary. And so we'll go into that as the series progresses, and I'll start to introduce the reason it's necessary. And it's not just necessary, because of oppression and the man is trying to oppress the woman. No. Because I know, the feminist movement, they will try to, tell us those things. It's not because of oppression. It's not because of any of those things. We have an obligation to nature. So we're going to go through the natural call that we have and the principles. And so, let's kind of let's get started with that. So I want to introduce the concept of gender, and gender being a principle of existence, right? And so when you think of a principle, right, what is a principal? I'm not talking about the person that's in charge of a school. I'm talking about a fundamental truth. So principle, when we talk about a principle, we're talking about a fundamental truth that serves as the foundation for a system. In this particular system, we're talking about the universe, or everything that's seen, everything in this dimension and other dimensions, right? It is a belief or a behavior of a chain of reasoning. That is what a principle is. And so that is a definition or a way that we describe it from a scientific or a modern perspective. But from a spiritual perspective, this principle is actually a creation of the Almighty God, the all. Many different spiritual sects and religions have names for him, her, the all, the one, he, the all. I keep saying he, but the all is not exclusive to a gender, because he created gender. And so when you create something, you are not bound to the principles or bound to your creation. And that's something we have to understand. And this, let me just take a moment and sit in this statement I just made, because this may be new to some of you. The fact that there is a creator, and that creator has no gender. That creator is what created everything, and everything is an expression of his creation. And so one of the very first things that the Almighty created was this principle of gender. And what the principle of gender is that everything, every single thing, everything that manifests is an expression of the masculine or feminine. They are an expression of masculine or feminine. This is the principle of gender. So it doesn't matter whether you're talking about the physical plane, the mental plane, or spiritual plane. It doesn't matter if you're talking about this existence, this material existence, or the non-material. It doesn't matter if you're talking about as above or so below. Everything in creation fits within this principle. This is the principle of gender. Everything will be masculine and everything will be feminine. You are.
Oh, Lanisha, I know you've been around a while, so you were already aware of like gender, right? And how everything has a masculine or feminine component to it. Um, can you think back to when you first learned that? Were you surprised, or did it kind of make the world make more sense? Welcome in, Kita. We are discussing the gender podcast from the Divine Feminine podcast. And so we're listening to different parts of it. And right now we are discussing gender and how everything in the world has a gender.
I go. Um, so when I heard Miano say this in the podcast, to me it just made total sense. It made complete sense. Because even though um in Abrahamic religions, God is always referred to as he and him, and we've given spirit like the male pronouns. Even the Bible says that God is a spirit. Um, and something that was always very interesting to me, once I like reread it, Genesis, where it talks about like the creation of mankind, and God was saying, "Let us make man in our image." People, I very rarely hear people go to the next verse that says, "And He made man and woman." Because that makes sense. If God was saying, "Let us make man in our image," and He made them male and female, some versions of the Bible saying He made them man and woman, then it makes sense that if humanity is like the physical representation of God or of the divine or of spirit, then it makes sense that God is neither male or female, and at the same time both. because that is balance. Um, that is balance. That's how children come about. That's how we keep the human race going. And for many species of animals and plants and bugs, that's how they keep uh, that's how they keep their, I was about to say animals. That's how they keep their species going. And so it makes sense. And then even when we think about other principles and like the balance of male and female or yin and yang, or when people say opposites attract, that makes sense. So it made perfect sense to me. Um, and I stopped a few years ago. Sometimes I'll say he when I'm talking to God, but usually if I say that, it's because I'm talking to somebody who believes that God is he, or God is a man, or God is our father. And I just don't feel like getting into conversation with them about that. And so I just may say he, but I stopped believing that God was just a father, or that God was he, um, and that God is a spirit. Alafia, Alafia, Alafia.
I'll go. Yeah. Have you ever read? Or I think we tried to do this as like a book club thing, or maybe a exercise in one of the Mommy Goddaughter classes. But do you remember reading about the All in the Kabbalion? Yeah, when I first read about the All in the Kabbalion, it was interesting to me because yes, it made sense, like complete sense, but that's not how I was raised or taught to view God. Like it's like they or the creator, because they say it, oh, the Almighty, the creator of all. But when you read the text in the Bible, it's clear that the God, to me, the God in the Bible doesn't, does not, um, does not fall in line with the definition of the all. Um, Meaning like how Miano mentioned that whatever is created, like the creator doesn't fall in line with the rules of the creator, that doesn't fall in line with what principles are created for the creation, meaning the all created the masculine and feminine, but the all is not one or the other. And it just is a very interesting concept, because I don't think as humans we really comprehend what the creator is. And it's like our minds wants to put it in a box of male and female because we're bound to those principles, or our mind wants to put it in the box of spirit or not because we're bound to those physical or not physical, because we're bound to those principles. And I just think that it's like a something to really meditate on, and the wideness of it continues to expand, because in the Kabbalion it says the all is everything. There's no box on everything. Like everything in existence, everything in not existence, everything in space, like there is no bounds. Space is not even the bounds of the all. Like everything exists inside the all. So the depiction of the God in the Bible is like you inside the all. just like just like we are, you are inside. And so it's just interesting, because as you grow and as you develop, you do see that there are various aspects of God. There are various deities that are gods, that are there, that are aspects of the all, which doesn't mean that they're not divine, does not mean they're not God. But it's just our concept of God is limited to maybe that level.
Yeah, so it's very interesting. And I thought it was beautiful that the first principle that is created, or the first principles that were created were masculine and feminine, because those are the bedrocks of creation. Like nothing else can come out of that. Well, nothing else can come forth unless, based on the principles that we've been assigned, the masculine and feminine come together. And that's on all levels. So I just, it makes you come down to fundamentals and start to see like these are the components of life, of existence. And these are the most basic components that everything has to have masculine or feminine. Alafia, alafia, alafia.
I go. I would just like to say I'm so glad that you mentioned that because a lot of people are not nowhere near ready for that conversation of the fact that the God of the Bible is not really the creator or like the almighty creator. The God of the Bible is some other, I don't know, to have human emotions like jealousy, that that's real, like I feel like that's a little low on the vibrational scale for somebody who's supposed to be the almighty creator. Like, what you jealous of? So yeah, a lot of people are not ready for that conversation, but I'm glad that you did. Alafia, Alafia, Alafia.
I go. Yes, it can be very destabilizing when you're first like hearing this, but it's also very comforting and it's very intuitive and makes a lot of sense. And I think when we're able to just truly like listen and then sit in the fact that um, there is like everything is connected. I think about the sun and rays of light, and how it all has an origin point and then it disperses. And so it makes sense that there is one creator God, and also it's like you have your two poles, and everything kind of goes in between that, and yeah, I really enjoy this part of um, the conversation on gender. Alafia, Alafia, Alafia. I'll go, I'll go. In the chat, Kita posed the question, do you think it's an ego thing as well? I think referring to God's jealousy, the Bible's God's jealousy. What do you guys think? Alafia, Alafia, Alafia.
I'll go, I'll go, I'll go. Um, okay, hold on. Okay, I'll go, I'll go, I'll go. I don't know that it's an ego thing. Um, I don't know it's an ego thing or if it's the only way that humans can express the consequence of their action. Like, for instance, if the God of the Bible is an aspect, let's say a great aspect of the creator. I mean, when you go into Vodun, there are many principles, there are many deities, there are many deities that are at that God level that we know of the God at the of the Bible, but they're not the all. They're aspects of the all. And so when if you saw God in that way, maybe humans would say, "Oh, God is a jealous God." But was it that he was, and it's a he, right? Because so we already know that it's one of the creations of the aspects of the all. But if they say he was a jealous God, why? Because you stepped out of the line of the principle that he was over and you got a consequence? I don't know. that's what it sounds like to me, right? It is not like he was, in the Bible just going around like, I don't like that. I don't like that guy. Like, I'm gonna take him out, or was it that there was a principle that was there and you step out of that principle and you get a consequence. Now, of course, there is the control, right? Of, they're wanting to have most people in that region worship this one God and no other. So you do have that aspect of like, government control. If you worship any other God, then he's a jealous God. You will get a consequence, right? And I think that's what the meat of this jealousy aspect is. Somehow I think that's human control. But on the other hand, if you reap negative consequences for stepping out of his principle, I don't know that that's jealousy. So I don't know. It's just, I think we have to work on how we define things. And I think that it's good to start to see like what is the control given, like control put in by man, and what is it that, like, what principle is this God over, and how do we stay in line with that? And when we are not in line with that, actions happen, just like in every other divinity. Like, they're over certain principles. There's certain things you should and should not do to stay in favor. So it's interesting. I don't know. I think that that's a complicated question. I feel.
I go. The what well, when it comes to jealousy specifically, it is like we can make him feel that way if we worship another God or put another God before him, which then calls into question. And I used to think this at like 8 years old. I thought that this God was the only God. So what other gods are there to put before him to make him jealous? Now, at 8 years old, I didn't understand that jealousy was really like an expression of insecurity. But then as you get older, you understand some things. You're like, well, what you got to be insecure about? Like, are these gods better, but you just don't want nobody else to know? And so I'm getting jealous because if they start giving any attention to this other God and then this God start blessing them better than what I'm doing, maybe this God don't make them beg as much before they finally get blessed. No, leave that God alone. Now I'm getting jealous because I want that attention. Um, it's just like when you start dismantling and you're like, this is not, this ain't making sense. Like this, you can't tell me that this God of the Bible, this is the end all be all when it comes to the God of the universe and everything seen and unseen, almighty creator. I don't, it's not, the math ain't mathing. But I know when it comes to jealousy, it was like mentioned specifically in regards to uh worshiping or putting other gods before him. Which again, I was like, but what other gods? I thought this was the only God. So what's happening? Alafia, Alafia, Alafia.
I'll go. Yeah, to me, it speaks of like the personification or the humanization of God, to give these certain characteristics. And one of the comforting things about learning about the all, or there's like a creator God that everything encompasses, is that like when you think about it, even as yourself, there's well, I'll speak for myself. Like, if I have all these different attributes, I'm not going to be jealous if somebody compliments one particular aspect of myself and like not another. You know what I mean? And so it's like if you are the creator of all things, um, and like it means you encompass everything. So you wouldn't get mad or a better example, say I have multiple children. If somebody compliments one of my children, I'm not going to be like, oh my gosh, you're complimenting this child and not this other child. Like, you know what I mean? So it just makes more sense to me, thinking about it like in that way, and that this, like the God of the Bible is one particular child. Um, and it's like they went to a particular land and we're like, ah, nah, nothing else exists. Like they're beefing with their brothers and their sisters and their cousins and their aunts. You know what I mean? Like they're estranged from the rest of their family type thing. That's the way I kind of like understand where the the Bible God in the version of the Bible that we were given, right? Because that's its whole own thing, right? All the translations and all that stuff. That's the way I kind of think about it. But yeah, let's dive deeper. Let's go back into the podcast and see what else Mianu is going to say about gender. Lafia, Lafia, Lafia.
Have both in order to create balance. You will have both to create balance. So you can't have one without the other. They are together in creation. Understand that. Let's just take a minute and think about this. So this is bigger than gay rights. This is bigger than patriarchy. This is bigger than any human experience. This is bigger than that. This is bigger than the animals, the plants, bigger than the solar systems. I dare you to think of something that does not have gender. You can't do it. Everything has a masculine or a feminine side. And in spiritual practices, within spirituality, you see this principle of gender expressed differently, right? I'm a voodoo priestess, so within voodoo, we have different voodoo, which means spirits. We have different spirits that are masculine and feminine. And so the spirits or the voodoo fit also within this principle. As human beings, we have our minds. We have our consciousness, which is a collaboration of different spirits or voodoo and you. And so when I say you, I mean your ego, your ego, your reincarnation, your mission, your ancestors, your different experiences from past lives. All of those things make up you. All of them. In addition to all the spirits and entities that came with you at birth, that were given to you by your family, that were chosen for you by your grandmothers, that were given to you to help you fulfill your mission. Now, mind you, the human being is just like the seed of a plant. When a child is born, just like that plant, a child has everything he needs to fulfill his mission and to be who he's supposed to be, to grow and develop into who he's supposed to grow and develop to. Even as an embryo, even as a baby, even as a toddler, even As a child, a teenager, a young adult, you have everything you need. And that was given to you initially. Plants are the same way. And it's all a matter of gender. It's expressed differently. You have a male side and a female side. Both of them together make you whole. Now, you may have more masculine than feminine because, again, we're talking about an energy. We're talking about a spirit. We're talking about an essence, a consciousness. This is a principle of existence. This isn't something tangible, right? I'm not talking about sex at this point. I'm talking about gender. Gender isn't bound by sex. Sex, is just like the mind. It's something that is bound by gender. The mind is bound by gender. There's masculine and feminine voodoo that are in your mind. Same with sex. Sex talks about your reproductive organs. All right, your sex or your reproductive organs are bound by gender. Ideally, we would like our mental gender and our sex gender to be the same. You see where I'm going with this? Ideally, we would like for our mental gender, meaning that we would like for most of the spirits that were given to us in this reincarnation that came with us to fulfill our mission and destiny, if they are of one particular side or dominance, we would like for our physical sex to also be in alignment with that, right? What do you mean by that, Priestess? Meaning that if you have a human being and their dominant head spirit is a warrior, voodoo is a warrior spirit, that means there's certain male characteristics, certain aggressive characteristics that are going to come with expressing the characteristics of a warrior. So you would expect, if that is the mental state and the mind of this person primarily, because that is their head spirit or that is their main voodoo that governs over their ori, over their third eye, then you would expect that person to also have a sex that is male. Meaning that you would expect that person's
I go. Oh, it's getting good. I think it's really, really beautiful because a lot of the issues surrounding like gender, sex, sexuality in the West, they try to make it seem like in traditions there aren't any answers to it or there's nothing we don't speak on it. But Mianu is clearly like talking about that, there's a difference or not, maybe, well, yeah, difference. There can be a difference between, your mental gender and your physical gender. What was coming up for you all when you heard that and thinking about that? And then especially thinking about the way that well, let me not say our, American society discusses this topic. Alafia, Alafia.
I go. I was sitting here thinking, I was like, ooh, Mianu, you getting into gender expression now. And oh, sorry if y'all heard that. That's my dryer. But I was like, yeah, she's getting into gender expression, which a lot of people um discount that when it comes to trans people and them trying to explain that even though I am in this body, in my mind, this is how I see myself. This is what I identify as. This is what I am in alignment with. And I do think that you have many trans people who understand that physically, yes, I get it. I am like whatever they were born. But here, and I've heard in a lot of like social media, like in videos, and they're trying to explain the difference between sex and gender. But for so many people, sex and gender is the same thing, and it's not. So I love how Mianu pointed out that sex is about anatomy and your reproductive organs, but in how she keeps reiterating um, that gender and that masculine and feminine energy is not about man and woman, but about how the energies of nature work together for balance and harmony, because that is how things remain balanced. Um, yeah, I'm gonna stop there. Alafia, Alafia, Alafia.
I'll go. I think it's really beautiful that a lot of traditional societies or cultures have a place for understanding the differences between sex and gender. There is, I mean, you can look across Native American, you can look at different um, traditional cultures, and you can see that they understand, we understand the differences. Well, we understand the principle, right? And we don't make it something extreme or lewd or uh, not valuable in society. So I think she'll probably go into it more, but for even those who have, let's say, their sex does not match their gender, there are places that they excel in society. And same for where you have people who sex and gender do match, there are places in society that they excel. And so it's just about knowing who you are and knowing your place, knowing your function, knowing what you're going to excel at. In the Western society, everything is hypersexualized. We don't really focus on gender, the mental. And if you are mismatched, then you are like a sexual deviant. Like everything is hypersexualized. And like I was looking at something and it was saying like I don't know if it was Native American or if it's Asian. They were like those who have like men, let's say, who have a male sex but a female gender, so their spiritual makeup is gender. They're really good for politics. They're really good for the arts. They're really good for negotiations. Like there's like so many other things that this type of person would excel in, and they're put in those places, and they're driven into uh, being the best of themselves, and it has little to do about sexual encounters. Like it has very, very little to do about that. So I just thought that was beautiful, and it's a different way of thinking than what we're very limited in the West when it comes to understanding the full spectrum of somebody's personal or spiritual experience. A lot feel.
I go. For our sisters that just joined us, we are listening to the first episode in the gender series on the Divine Feminine podcast. We're listening to it throughout this call and then discussing it. And so Mianu had just started to break down and talk about there being a difference between the gender of our mind and then our body gender or our sex. And then right before that, it started with talking about the all and how the all encompasses everything. And within the all, there is masculine and feminine, and everything within existence kind of falls between that. So, does anybody else have any thoughts that came to mind, or do you want to dive deeper and go and listen to a bit more of the episode? Give me a thumbs up if you want to listen to more of the episode, and then we have a little bit more discussion. All right, let's go ahead and dive in again.
Sexual organs, their physical attributes, to be male or masculine, physical characteristics. That is how it is most of the time. On the other end, if you have a person, a human being who has, a main
Just a second, we'll get that back going.
that's who rules the predominant part of their personality. That is who they are. You would expect that same human being to have a matching feminine or female sex organ. You would expect it to be the same. And for most of us, that is the way it is. Our primary or main spirit that covers our head also is over our sex, or that same, not necessarily the spirit itself is over our sexual organ, but that particular side of the principle, right? Because all things are governed by either a male or a female, by the divine masculine or by the divine feminine. So all of the spirits, all of the voodoo that govern over existence are one or the other. They are either masculine or they are feminine. Even as you look into Eastern medicine, or even as you look into other spiritual systems, you will see they assign a gender to their principles as well. Yin and yang, right? It is divine masculine and divine feminine.
Oracle. What do you guys think about that? The balancing. Oh, good. Okay. I can listen to a bit more.
It is divine masculine and divine feminine. And what happens is sometimes, and now I'm, speaking to my LGBTQT, I think I'm saying it right, community. I'm talking to my homosexual community. And there are times when you have a human being who has a primary head spirit or primary voodoo, their third eye, their primary divinity that was born in this reincarnation with them. It will be of one gender. Let's say it's masculine. Okay? Which means the primary way that this person functions based on their divinity is masculine. Their divinity may be a masculine divinity that is over fire or over earth, because they're also over an element also, right? That's another principle. We'll go into that later. But whatever the characteristics of that particular divinity or energy or consciousness, it's primarily masculine. And so this person's mental space, they're looking at life through masculine eyes. That's well and good for a masculine male mental spaced human being to look through life that way. And it's not confusing in this society when they have male sex organs. But what happens when you have a human being with a male mental but a female sex? They look at life through the eyes of their male divinity, carrying themselves the way the divinity expresses itself, looking at life through those eyes, but yet their gender, based on this body that they've been given for this particular reincarnation, has a feminine sexual organ. What does that mean? What does that person look like? You know, these are the gifted human beings that we see in our LGBTQT community. You know, you can, on the flip side, have a human being with a female gender, mental gender, their main head spirit, their Ori is a feminine deity. They look at life through the eyes of their female head spirit, yet their sex, their reproductive organs are masculine. What does that mean? How do we reconcile that? You know, I see this all the time being a priestess. You know, all the time. And we accept it because we know this happens. In the culture, we have been having, this is just a pattern. This is just the way it happens. And there are some deities that, again, they're masculine and feminine. So you can have a masculine deity over beauty and wealth, and you can also have a feminine deity over beauty and wealth, as well as, you know, other attributes. Because again, there is a divinity over each area over existence, and it has to be one on each side, right? And so, because that makes it whole. And so you will be one of them. You will be either a masculine or a feminine, have a masculine or feminine deity, and that deity will have certain characteristics. But just know there is the opposite gender that also coincides. I won't get into too much of the details of that. That's what priests study. That is the science that people like myself learn and study. And I don't want to bore you with that, with those details.
What were your thoughts as she was going deeper into this? I feel, I feel, I feel.
Hmm. Lafia, Lafia, Lafia. I think I have some good thoughts on this. I know I can say personally, I know exactly what she's speaking of. I've been with my wife almost 20 years. So to state the difference of, I guess, how she was saying you have a, what was it, a gender and a sex, and they're not the same, but they, how Banzi was saying, they excel in certain areas. I get that. I get that through life experience completely. And yeah, I gets chaotic, I guess I would say, for some people trying to force one, excuse me, sorry, trying to force one over the other when your vessel contains, possesses both. I get that. It can be difficult. And as welcoming as the Western society is to homosexuality, they are just as judgmental and prejudiced the same factor. Like it's already hard when we're women, then when you're spiritual women, then you're homosexual. That it makes it tough. So yeah, through experience, you really have to stay grounded. You really truly have to find a balance. If I guess if that's the life that you're living, and if you are, that's cool. If not, that's cool too. But I, for her to specify the balance, just you got to find the balance instead of pushing one way or the other. I that was yeah, that was that was on point. Go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
I'll go, I'll go, I'll go. Yeah, it makes me think about the reflection with the all, right? Because within the all, there are both. And so people who um, do have, one a mental gender and then another physical sex, I can see how they are like closer to like the all, their experience and what they like think, see, feel can be more aligned with the all because they're having two different experiences happening at one. And then I also think about the strength that they can acquire with like when they're truly being who they are, both aspects of themselves and like the pushback that they might be getting. But when you overcome any obstacle or pushback, you become stronger and stronger. And so I hope that in the future, like this knowledge would be um like more known so that people would know that there are other ways of thinking about it, or that they're able to have another perspective on how to view themselves instead of just thinking like they're wrong or they're different, or even, especially if you're coming from like a Christian aspect. I don't really know what the other like major religions, what their viewpoints are, but like they're lesser loved by God, or or there's some type of like mistake, or they're an abomination, when it's like, no, you're truly more like aligned with God because um well, like an aspect of God because of, having all these different components, and God deals with all these different components in existence. I just wish more people who are part of the LGBTQ plus community knew that, and maybe there would be like less suicide and less hurting if they realized how loved and divine they truly are. Alafia, Alafia, Alafia.
I go. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Wish that they did know that there's a lot of marginalization just because they don't understand. And like I mentioned before, every, but I also want to shed light, just, we talking a lot of LGBT community and those who have different genders and sex, but that doesn't necessarily always mean that you're a lesbian or that you're gay or that you're part of the community. I myself, male head spirit and a female gender. So, I mean, sex. So, in that way, I'm lesbian. So it doesn't depict that that's who you are, but it does show that a lot of, those in the LGBT community, I feel one way, am this way. It gives you insight to think like maybe they're actually a different gender than, and they haven't been able to balance, because somebody like me actually is good in leadership, is good in creativity. Like they're all like there's a lot of other things that become very beneficial. Like I'm good in business. So like how, a man would be good in the physical world. I'm really good in the physical world. I'm also good in the spiritual world, just like a female would be, or a feminine person would be good in the spiritual world. It's like it's more about finding the balance than falling into the difference. Alafia.
I'll go. Yeah, I think that also speaks to like needing to have a better understanding of our bodies and how they work, and the ways that different like hormones, or the chemical releases and things like that play a part in the way that we think and process things and also express, on a basic level. We have understanding of that, of like when we're hungry, then, we might be more irritated or more sensitive, or, for us women, when we're on our moon cycle, we have this going on and that going on. And so the way that we react to things are differently, or the way that we perceive things are differently. Um, but like if we had a better basic understanding of the influence of our physical body, I think we would also have another perspective on the spiritual side of things. And we would be able to understand how they can beautifully meld, and get that harmony that Vasi was just talking about. Alafia, Alafia, Alafia.
I go. As Miana was talking, I couldn't help but think about um, with the LGBTQIA plus. Hopefully, I didn't leave out any letters, but it, it made me think about how exhausting it must be for them to constantly be trying to explain to people who do not feel how they feel, how they are not abominations and that they are people and human beings that are still worthy of love and respect. And so it just made me think of like I used to always say, and I was never saying this to try to be funny, but I was like, if I had a choice in the matter, I would much rather be in a wheelchair than to be gay or part of the LGBT community, only because that seems like that's harder. And I'm already a Black woman. Let me not, if I'm gonna add anything to the list, or like if I had a choice to pick something, then let me pick something that like people at least will be a bit nicer about it, because the amount of hate that is spewed and geared towards them, which is really due to a lack of understanding and only looking at the physical and having no understanding of the spirit and how things work when it comes to spirituality, and that everything we see in the physical is just a manifestation of what's happening in spirit. But when people don't understand that, largely because what we have been taught when it comes to spirit, a lot of that ain't even real. That's another subject. But I'm like, it must be exhausting. Just like how, how Black people, we can talk about how exhausting it is to try to always be trying to explain to white people microaggressions and all this other stuff. And I'm thinking maybe for white women, it must be exhausting trying to get men to understand what it's like for them to constantly having to be dealing with sexism. And it's like the further down the totem pole you go, the more exhausting I feel like it must be. Because I feel like there's also like a responsibility that comes with that, of having to teach and remind people that are higher up on the totem pole that you are not the base for all existence, where everything that we do needs to be centered around how you are, and then we try to emulate that. Life comes in many different forms and expressions. And I'm like, God, that must be, I know they got to be sick of us. Even though I don't give nobody no problems, but I'm just saying, us as the people who are not um, a part of the community, they got to be sick of us. Alafia, Alafia, Alafia.
I'll go, I'll go, I'll go. Yeah, it's just so unfortunate the way everything has been like skewed and flipped on its head. Like even that saying, bottom of the totem pole, like within the Native American practice, like the divinities on the bottom of the totem pole are viewed as the strongest because they support everything. You know what I mean? And so they even took and it's parallel with what's going on with those in the LGBTQ plus community. Because if we really were accepting them and creating the spaces in society, I wonder what it would look like, you know? Like the world and industry changed once women started to get into it. And we're still seeing and unfolding and discovering new things. Like especially when we think about medicine, like for women's health, baby, we have not scratched the surface because for so long there weren't women doctors exploring certain things. They like because men are just from this outside perspective. They don't know what's going on internally. So it's just this like projection based on their focal point. And so I think my hope is just for people to be more open-minded and able to expand, to be able to have a wider perspective on the world, but also having a connection to humanity, or like looking for that connection that like connects all of us together, so that they're able to have like a foundation, and then maybe try to understand and appreciate others better. You know what I mean? Like this is also like a same or a similar thing that goes on when I think and talk about, diaspora relations, where it's like when we are like disconnecting ourselves from our African and other diasporan family members, and it's like, oh, well, they're just that way. It's like, no, we all have this foundational thing, like connect on that instead of thinking like, oh, it's the inherent thing that people do. Oh, that person must be inherently bad or inherently just seeking attention, or things like that. Because I'm like, no, why would somebody choose to, especially when it comes to Black, like anybody who's African and also part of these, like the intersectionality go crazy. Why would they choose to make themselves even more of a target? Why would that be a choice? You know what I mean? Or even when you ask somebody who is like, nah, I'm straight, and it's like, okay, well, could you choose to be gay? Like what, like it's like so basic. And I think it's also though a form of like negating the spirit, like your spiritual connection when people tell people like they shouldn't be a certain way. Now, don't get me wrong, this is very layered and I'm excited. Okay, we got about 20 more minutes for us to go a little deeper, because there are some there is more to this than just the acceptance part of it. So let's play a little bit more and see if Miano, if we can get to like another juicy part of this gender um, discussion. Alafia, Alafia, Alafia.
But for the purpose of this discussion, it's necessary to bring up some of it, because you need to understand that, for one, the way you feel is not crazy. Okay? If you are a man and you resonate with the divine feminine, there's probably a reason why. Right? If you are you need to understand that, for one, the way you feel is not crazy. Okay? If you are a man and you resonate with the divine feminine, there's probably a reason why. Right? If you are a woman and you have feminine sex organs, I should say, but you look at life through this particular, and nothing's wrong with you. Not only are you not crazy, but nothing is wrong with you. You are perfect by design. You have the capability of tapping into certain spiritual powers and gifts that others don't have, because you have that duality. Okay, and that goes for the masculine head with female sex organs, and for the female head with the masculine sex organs. Both scenarios are highly gifted in two different areas, but highly gifted nonetheless. And so when we look at this from a spiritual perspective, we can see how dynamic and how beautiful creation is, you know. And I think where we've gotten out of balance is in not acknowledging and respecting our spirits and not having that knowledge. Like, this Western society has no idea of what I'm saying. The things that I'm telling you right now, talking about, different spirits, having a gender and assigning them to characteristics, this is something totally foreign to Western civilization. This doesn't fit into what they've adopted. They have adopted a paradigm that pushes the narrative of Christianity, right? And religion, which this is totally opposite than what religion is saying. Religion condemns you for who you are. It doesn't give you any type of insight or answers as to who you are and how to live harmoniously in your body during this reincarnation. Our ancestors traditionally knew how to help coach and raise a child that had this type of unique way about them. Okay? And in the culture, it's not really something that is I don't want to say expressed or exaggerated. I guess I can say it's not really something that is exaggerated because everyone knows, and everyone knows how to deal with it. And how to deal with it, we will, go down that line in this series, right? And just to give you a sneak peek on that, just to touch on it right now, it's like in the culture, we don't, I say they, but it's we, it's us, it's me, it's my culture, it's your culture. In traditional African culture, we don't put an over exuberant amount of time, energy, or focus into love, sex, and all of that. This society totally skews the reasons people come together.
Okay, sorry guys, it keeps going out. Let me reshare.
Or exaggerated. I guess I can say it's not really something that is exaggerated because everyone knows, and everyone knows how to deal with it. And how to deal with it, we will, go down that line in this series, right? And just to give you a sneak peek on that, just to touch on it right now, it's like in the culture, we don't, I say they, but it's we, it's us, it's me, it's my culture, it's your culture. In traditional African culture, we don't put an over exuberant amount of time, energy, or focus into love, sex, and all of that. The words come to too much attention to things that are a distraction to the human being. What do I mean by that? This society puts a lot of emphasis.
I'll go. I think that's a nice little breaking point to discuss because yeah, a lot of Western culture, I feel like a foundation or a cornerstone is imbalance and exploitation. And when it comes to like our physical bodies, the main thing that it is typically used for, emphasize the use is for sex. And so that has greatly influenced how we view ourselves, and then also the way that our spirit expresses itself. So, what did you think about that when Mianu talked about the imbalance when it comes to sex? Lafia, Lafia, Lafia.
No, I feel. Um, I think it's really important as far as the balance go when it comes to sex because you're doing a spiritual energy exchange at the same time. So that's really not a topic to play with. I would think you would want to make sure you're balanced when it comes down to sex, more so less even with yourself because then you're playing with somebody else's energy. You're bringing somebody else's frequency. Excuse me. You're bringing somebody else's frequency within to your own melody. And I think that's like I said. I think that's super important for balance. But if you are interacting sexually and you're working under different gender, sex identities, however, um, more so, you should already be balanced into some form of clarity, getting to that point. Because if not, you wouldn't be in that situation. I mean, as far as your hormones go, your emotions, you wouldn't be in that situation if there wasn't some form of balance. But I do see it very important. I sort of held on to that key point when she was speaking, as far as, I mean, like I said, you're messing with somebody else's energy. That's another frequency all in itself. So why would you be doing so if your energy ain't right? But again, for hypersexual, they're hypersexual. I'll say I won't put me in that category, but they're hypersexual. So a lot of times that's looked over. And then they're wondering why, hey, I laid down with this person and now I feel like this, or hey, I laid down with this person and now all of a sudden what I could deal with mentally or spiritually yesterday, now it's a problem. Now this is aggravating me. Now I can't figure out how to balance my kids, my work day, my mental, my spiritual. I'm not finding time to ground. I'm not finding time to meditate. There's no study time, but there's time to sit on the phone and play games. There's time to be on streaming sites, running series. What do they call it? Binging. But yeah, no, balance is absolutely. You wonder why. Don't wonder why if you got it together before you lay yourself down. But that's just my point of view. Go ahead, go ahead.
I'll go. Yeah, and one of the things I think about is like when we are spending our time doing one thing, that means that we aren't spending time or aren't able to do something else. And so when there's so much emphasis on using your physical body for sex, that doesn't allow a lot of time for our divinity to truly express itself. and to create. And I wonder what the world would look like or could look like if there was more balance when it came to sex. And if there was more balance in the ways that we um, integrated and combined our divinity and our physicality, our humanness. And I think that's one of the things, the battles that's going on right now is like us breaking away from such a like primal animalistic way of being and integrating, going more towards like a more well-balanced or spiritual way of living. Um, that's one of the like battles or wars that I see going on. Lafia, Lafia, Lafia. I'll go, I'll go, I'll go. Okay, so we got about 5 minutes left in this call. So I feel like this is a good place for us to take a pause because we do have our Mommy Goddaughter class coming up next. And this is definitely a conversation that we will be picking up on next week because there's a little bit more in this episode, but then there's also more episodes within the series. And so I'm excited to see what else Mianu has to say and the different insights that you all have um, from that podcast. So um, we just did New Moon Words of Power on Friday. So we'll have full moon in a couple weeks. But of course, we have the chat. Stay active in there. If you have any questions, any insights, things you want to share, definitely keep the conversation going there. Or if you need any support or, prayer throughout the week, that's also an amazing resource to do to be able to connect and just reach out because we're all over the country and all over the world. And so it's important that we're staying connected and leaning on each other because a lot of us are the only ones in our community or our family groups kind of shifting this energy. So it's important that we are connecting with our sisters and people who are also on the path to help us, stay recharged and all of those things. But I'm so happy that you all came and contributed to this conversation. And I hope that this week is one of the very best that you have had and that the ending of this year will be absolutely glorious for you. Okay. So until next time, everyone be well.